everyone. I'm Kara Rafferty, one of your co-hosts today on the real estate world. Let's get real. We are very excited to bring you another episode with myself and Jamie Michelle Kane. Jamie.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody is well.
Awesome. And we have two guests for you today that we are very lucky and blessed to have on our podcast and video call today. Jeff Garcia and Carlo DePisa. Am I saying that right?
That's absolutely correct.
Very good. Okay. Well, I'm big on not letting myself do the introductions because no one should do it better than yourself. But I certainly want to quickly say, I'm Kara Rafferty. I'm one of your co-hosts. I work for RentPath, and I have a passion for connecting the multifamily industry to their tools and resources. And that is how 5 years ago, 3 days, 4 minutes, 55 seconds, I met Jamie Michelle Kane. So Jamie, tell us who you are before we go into our guest speakers today.
Sure. Jamie Michelle Kane. I am a real estate partner with the law firm of Boyle & Code in Rochester. I specialize in all things real estate, but specifically my niche is in multifamily, leasing, training on fair housing compliance, acquisitions, and then evictions if necessary. And like Kara said, we met almost 6 years ago, two friends destined to become great friends at this point. And so we've both been introduced to Jeff, who then introduced us to Carlo. So we're continuing the chain with awesome people that we are bringing into our little chain. And so I'm going to throw it to Jeff to introduce himself next.
Thanks so much, Jamie. Really just thankful to be on this call first and foremost. We met, I think, probably a year or so ago. We got introduced by some mutual contacts, and it's just been a beautiful thing since. We've discussed together in a few different cities, and now here we are on a podcast. So all good things. Jeff Garcia is my name. I'm with a firm called Spectrum Capital Management. I'm an independent financial advisor. And I've got a lot of different resources that are sometimes unique within the industry. We'll be discussing 1031 DSTs. We also have expertise in non-traditional investments, both public and private. So that's kind of a quick shot on me.
The last time I saw Jeff, we were both in New York City. Jeff was graciously a host at our New York City roundtable cocktail hour the day before we had our first inaugural, I can't talk today. First roundtable meeting in New York City. It was actually on my birthday, and we got out of New York City just in time, it seems, unfortunately, for COVID-19 to kind of take over. And so everything's kind of changed, and that's why we lead us to Carlo, which is a great introduction right now. Because he's going to be a great resource for those businesses that have been forced closed because of COVID-19. So Carlo, welcome to the group. We certainly are thrilled to have you as a resource. I know clients of mine, friends of mine were reaching out, trying to figure out and navigate kind of how to go about the SBA disaster loans. And that brought me to ask Jeff if he had an expert, and he recommended you. And so thank you for joining us today. And my hope is that you can become an awesome resource to the group that we deal with all the time.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. I'll give a few words about myself. Again, Carlo DePisa, and I am president of a firm called North Star Business Funding. And what we do is work with business owners on SBA loans as well as alternative funding sources. So sometimes, you've got clients who maybe aren't a great fit for the SBA or banks in general. And we work in that world of alternative financing. So we help navigate the confusing parts of that because there's a lot of different moving pieces and different lenders that are, great lenders and some lenders that are not so great. So we help navigate that and also help in the world of, working capital, lines of credit, equipment financing. So pretty much in the alternative lending space, though.
Great. I'm sure you've been super busy since
it's been nuts. I just this morning actually posted on Facebook, on my personal Facebook page, just to be careful because there's some unscrupulous individuals out there that are charging fees to help with the disaster loans. And one thing I like to say is, if you're going to pay fees for these disaster loans, especially up front, do not do it. it's just something that there's always someone out there trying to take advantage of someone. So just be aware that, you shouldn't be paying anything up front to access one of these loans.
Carlo, I found that in some of my other business happenings that was happening pre-COVID-19, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So obviously that's going to kick up now. So that's nothing new. But yeah, if it's too good to be true,
Yeah.
if it's too easy, it
Yeah.
is too easy.
I've had clients lose thousands of dollars on those kinds of scams, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's real sad. A great resource too, that I, from time to time, if I'm like, this seems a little bit weird, I might go into like Bigger Pockets and throw in a name there. And I think you get a lot of great reviews up there and such. So that's a great resource, that we can use.
So
Absolutely.
Carlo, a lot of people are asking about just in general, the SBA disaster loan. Can you maybe give a brief understanding of who might be the person to turn towards this loan product for relief?
Sure. So there's a couple programs out there. So you've got the disaster loan that's out there right now, and the disaster loan is eligible right now. You can go on the SBA website, and you're going to go to disasterloan.sba.gov. And that's going to bring you to the space that where you'd apply for that loan. And you have to do that through the government. So normally with SBA loans, you can go to banks as intermediaries, but in this particular situation, you have to go to that website to apply. Now, I've heard some things about the application process, that there's already 25,000 people that have applied. So they're getting a big response. And there's wait times. The website sometimes is a little glitchy and slow.
So pause.
Yeah, so I would recommend that people who are applying for those at least allot a couple of hours of time between filling out documents, uploading documents, and any kind of glitches that there might be.
Okay.
But in essence, that disaster loan is going to be a loan, working capital loan up to $2 million. And the interest rates are going to be 3.75 for for-profit businesses and 2.75 for not-for-profit businesses. They haven't really given terms. They're saying up to 30 years as far as the terms go. I guess it's going to be on an individual basis depending on where, what your business is and what your industry is. There also is a 1-year deferment on those disaster loans, which means you will not have to make payments on those disaster loans for 1 year. So trying to give, obviously, business owners a little break.
Sure.
And from what I'm hearing, they're not requiring real estate as collateral or tax returns. So that's a big deal.
Sure.
There are some forms that are on that website that, we can get into later.
Yes.
Saw some questions you guys had on this particular forms, and do we do this or that? And we can talk about those specifically. But in essence, that's the disaster loan program.
Okay. Now, did that give any kind of forgiveness for payments that are owed at all? Because some people were saying there's products out there that are just deferments, and there's products out there that are actually going to get rid of some payments that are owed.
Yeah, so this one is a deferment program.
Okay.
So 1-year deferment.
Yep.
What they're working on right now, and hopefully they're going to pass, is that CARES bill that you hear about.
Yes.
That program is a little bit different. That's going to be a 7A program that will be administered through banks. So that program you can obtain through banks, and that's going to be what they're calling a paycheck protection program. So that's going to allow up to 2 months, is my understanding, of forgiveness of any expenses, payroll, any kind of sick leave, paid leave time, rent, utilities, those types. And I can send you actually an article that details out exactly, is actually written by a law firm, so it's legit.
Greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. Absolutely.
Can we back up for a second? Because I just wanted to take a look at the fact sheet on my own. Because of course I bring to the table just kind of like the everyday Joe Schmo. I thought something interesting I just quickly read is that to your point, that you don't necessarily need to use your real estate as collateral, but I thought it was important to note that it won't be declined. The loan won't be declined because of lack of collateral either.
Yep.
So I thought that was an interesting.
Good point, Kara.
Yep. Good point. Absolutely.
Can a person apply for both? Will there be an opportunity, let's say, to do an SBA disaster loan in conjunction with this CARE loan, or do you think it's one or the other?
So that's a great question, and I'm getting conflicting information. So a couple of days ago, the answer was no. Then I was on an SBA call a couple of days ago with the Chamber of Commerce, and they said, yes, you can do it as long as the use of funds is different.
Okay.
Between the two loans. And then the day later I heard no. So until the actual program is released,
okay,
I don't know 100%.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I answer that a lot for my clients lately. So it's a wait and see. We need clarification point. So fair enough. That's fine. Okay. If we can turn to the SBA disaster loan specifically, then most of my clients are struggling, it seems, in the process itself. So they own a business, either in an LLC, LLP, something to that nature, where the taxes are in an LLC situation going to be flowing through their personal taxes. And when they go to look at the documents themselves, struggling as to what information belongs on each required section. So maybe if you could just generally walk through what the application looks like and what information, when you go to prepare, should you have on hand to be able to sit down and spend a couple hours to complete the application.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, very good. So a lot of the information that the SBA is requiring for this program looks like, information on your business, basically. So the first form that they're going to require is called a Form 5, which is basically just a general, it's a disaster business loan. I printed these all out, so I make sure I go over all of these and I can see exactly what's on these. So it's like a 3 or 4 page document that wants information on your business. So this is going to be information about your business, obviously. Now, when we get into the personal financial statement, that's where I think some questions pop up, like as far as, liabilities and things like that. So the simplest way to look at it is that is a personal financial statement. So nothing business related. So you're going to put on things on there like your mortgage, your car payments, things like that, credit cards.
Your personal rent.
Anything personal. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Mortgage payments. Exactly. And value of property that you own, anything you own personally.
Okay.
But when you get into this, the business loan application, it's actually not too bad to fill out, but it will take some time. But basically just asking questions about very general information about the business, the address, any owners. If there's more than one owner, each owner will have to fill in their information. I don't think it's anything really complicated.
And that threshold was if you own 20% or more of the business that you're filling it out as an owner?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The next form that they're asking to fill out is they call it an additional information form, but it's just additional information that is not going to be on the application. It's really, from what it looks like, is just a monthly description of what your expenses are for your business.
Okay.
So they can take a look at. Yeah, exactly. So that'll be for the business. It even asks, employee wages. So it's everything associated with the business.
Okay.
After that, the next form they're looking at is a 4506T, which is basically just a request for tax returns. So you fill that paperwork out, and this form gets sent to the government, and they are able to get your tax return. So ideally, I think they're trying to keep it simple, so they are not having people upload their documents.
Right, much like when you do a house closing and they ask for that document as part of the mortgage documents.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So that's pretty simple. It's only, a page long, and it's not a lot of information to fill out. The next form that they're asking for, I actually skipped over the personal financial statement, but that's one of the forms also. It's just a description of, your name, your address, your assets, your liabilities that you own personally, and then a breakdown of any real estate that you own. Again, personally, not corporate wise. So that you're going to want to leave off as far as the corporate information.
Does that include like timeshares that you may own also?
If you own them
a share of
personally,
something, just for clarity, sometimes people with the secondary investments, those timeshares come up as, do you actually own something?
yeah. So you could list it. I don't know how they would assign a value to it on the
Right.
asset side of things. You could just list it in maybe one of the note sections and just say, hey, I also have this timeshare for whatever it's worth.
Okay. Sure.
I don't think it's really going to break or make an application.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Yep.
think of questions that my clients ask that I'm like, should you put this down? So
Yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely.
No, Jamie, absolutely. I think everybody just wants to get through the process.
Yeah.
Oh, I cut out? Okay.
You did for a second.
Okay. So what else we got, Carlo?
So next one is a what they call a Form 2202, and they like to assign numbers to everything to make things complicated, but it's basically just a debt schedule for your business. So
it is for the business then.
Yes.
That's where the confusion was coming. Is that supposed to incorporate everything from your business plus your personal, or just be your business?
Yeah, your personal stuff, again, is going to be on your personal financial statement. So this is just an easier way to kind of separate out the debt expenses. And it's just going to allow you to list each creditor with the original amount, the original date you took that loan on, balances, is it delinquent or current, when it matures, and your payment amount. So when you're filling out these the online application, make sure you have available to you all your expenses, any debts that you have. I would recommend you go down and you fill out the debt schedule ahead of time to get an idea what you need and just print it out. That way, when you're in the process, you can just go through a lot more efficiently. And then last one is a form. What is this one? This is they call it a supporting information. It's just, again, very general. It just asks you to, and it's I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's very simple. It's basically just gross revenues, cost of goods, any rental properties that you have, compensation you receive from any other sources. Pretty simple form. And that's really it as far as the forms. So it's not as dreadful as you might think. It's not the simplest thing in the world, but there's some forms to fill out, and they're not too complicated.
Sure. So we did have some pre-advanced questions that people were asking. If I can just shoot them off to you and see if we can get some clarity on certain points then. So the first thing is, so I just want to clarify, we got a question, is the SBA Form 5, Form 5C, the correct form for the COVID disaster fund loan where a part of the loan will be forgiven? So the answer, I believe, to that is no.
Correct. Yeah, okay. Totally separate loan.
Okay. And so the second question was, the loan forgiveness guidelines state that you must keep a person in your employment after COVID's over to qualify for loan forgiveness. Does that apply to the independent contractors that you use on a continual basis if you don't have employees?
Ooh, that's a good question. My gut would tell me no, just because they're technically not an employee.
Right.
But I again, until that program comes out, the final version of it, it's
this would be the CARE, because this is not talking about the SBA, just for clarity.
CARE, or you might hear it be called the Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay.
Which is the forgivable portion.
And they're voting on that today?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully. Okay. Does this statement on the SBA Form 5 sole proprietor mean that they need to submit both Form 5 plus the Form 5C, or only the Form 5C?
Yeah, I would say just the Form 5C because they're very similar as far as the information they're asking for. Just one's a sole proprietor application versus a corporate application. That's really the difference.
Okay, perfect. On Form 5C, the applicant is the business name or personal name?
So I didn't look at Form 5C because I was focusing on the other one, but let me see if I can pull this up real quick here.
Thank you.
So they're asking, I'm just going to look at the question again here. This is the applicant. So it's asking for a first name and last name. So I'm assuming that it's your personal name.
Okay. All right, same form. So on Form 5C, the damaged property section is not applicable to the COVID crisis, correct?
5C. Damaged property section. Let's see here. Damaged. Okay, where are you?
Not
Damaged
to put
property.
you
Here
on
we
the
go.
spot.
Jamie, what type of client size are you seeing these questions come in from? Are you seeing them come in more from the independent rental owners, small, middle, large size, unit share? Like where are you seeing the most traction with these questions?
So number one, I'm not just seeing it from multifamily. We're seeing general real estate clients, developers asking this question, business owners, people who, own restaurants, people who own salons. I'm getting it across the board from all of my clients in any area that I do work in. We are seeing probably those that have, 100 to 150 employees at max is kind of where the high has been, and that's for employees. So you have bigger companies there. And then, for the landlords that are asking me, they may own, 100 units on average. But I do have somebody who owns manufactured home parks that has asked that question. We had that question come from outside the industry, like I said. So variety. I think anybody where I'm seeing this is anybody who has been forced shut down by the government, deemed non-essential and unable to generate business right now for profit.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I kind of want to ask because I feel like sometimes when people listen to this stuff, they're like, well, that doesn't apply to me, you know?
Yeah, I think this applies to everybody here who's looking for an avenue to, have some relief, maybe not being, forced to lay off employees at this point. Make sure you're making your rent if you can.
Exactly.
Pay your own mortgage, get your own food. I mean, some people are, the unemployment that's going to be given for a first impression to 1099 and self-employed people. That's helpful, but I know some people are just not even looking to do that if they don't have to, if they can get a loan that would help just sustain the business model so they're not dependent on the government for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the whole idea behind these loans are that you want to keep your employees on staff.
Yeah.
When this turns around, if your employees leave you, you're going to have to rehire, retrain. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare.
Absolutely.
So the whole idea is to keep your employees, get them paid so things are ready to go. When you're ready to open your doors and they lift this shelter home thing, I mean, businesses are ready to move forward and continue on.
Yeah.
Two thoughts in real time. So today it's the 27th around noon, 12:30. Construction non-essential was just called off in New York State. So I mean, everything's developing, and more people are being told to stay home, shelter in place. But I think one interesting thing that came up on a call this morning is that in multifamily, we're going to see the asset of people. It's going to be really interesting right now because they are deemed, essential in some parts, right, Jamie? But what we're seeing is that the looking season is expanding, and the leasing season is being put off, and the turns are being put off, and the moves are being put off. But as soon as everything comes back to normalcy, there's gonna be a surge. And you're going to need these people. You're going to need more people than you had before. So if somebody's thinking right now, like, we'll make it, we'll figure it out, I urge them to look at these tools and vehicles to keep their staff, because you're going to need more staff than you had for a few months after we come back.
Not only that, it is heartbreaking to hear some of my colleagues and friends and business partners who I've been in business with for years share their stories of having to make those difficult calls, of having to look someone in the face that they've been partners with for 20 plus years and say to them, look, I don't have any cash flow to pay you. And they know that it affects their business. They know it affects those people's families more though. So these products for continuity purposes and continuation of these businesses are so critical to bridging the gap. I mean, I look at them as bridge loans in theory to get us through this crisis so that they can sustain every part of what we just discussed, but really at the heartstrings of, I don't have to make this difficult choice between my business and my friends' lives, that they can live to sustain themselves and yourself. Let's not forget the owners that are making such great sacrifices here for their own staff. So,
Jeff, do you have any thoughts on this?
On the loans themselves?
Yeah, I mean, just, I know you're being great and being on the call today to give us support, but do you have any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that, from our perspective, we're looking to always try to help people preserve wealth as well as create it. And I think over the last several years, we've been in really more broad terms, more of a wealth creation, kind of situation where people were building more, acquiring more real estate, acquiring more wealth, right? And we're kind of shifting gears now into more of a preservation type scenario. So both in terms of the kind of dialogue that we'll be having with me, but I think also, what we were just talking about with the loans, it's not a loan in the traditional sense that, you take on the loan and then you simply pay it back. It looks to me like the government is saying, look, we want you to keep your employees. We want you to keep people in the workforce. We're going to help you out with that. And provided you're able to do that, then, we'll forgive those loans. So really grateful that Carla can be a really good resource because there's a lot of questions in this area for sure.
Yeah, so this is
a good segue back. We were able to figure out if it's the damaged property is applicable on the 5C form.
Yeah, so basically I think what they're doing is they're using the same form they would use for a disaster loan. Right. Like a hurricane type loan. So yeah, you that's not required to be filled out because obviously, and I mean, I can't imagine property being damaged from the COVID virus, right?
The only potential scenario that I have come up with in that where clients are asking me, because a lot of the insurance questions surrounding this are, are you going to have business interruption coverage over your losses of rent? And the only thing that I can come to where maybe there might be some litigation potential is if the entire building, let's say, is forced vacant because of a pervasive spread of the virus or something where it is unable to be cleaned and it forces people to leave. And it's basically in that situation condemned by, let's say, the Board of Health. Then maybe there would be something to tie to actual loss to the property. But I don't know if we can do that. That's like an extreme example of potential for some form of litigation, which we all know is coming on these issues of these kind of damages, which are completely unprecedented. I mean, we've gone back and looked at like the Spanish flu to see, hey, can we pull some case law from way back then to give us guidance? And they're just on this magnitude, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Jamie, what were you doing to locate that case law? Were you opening up books? Were you, going into a basement?
Oddly enough, some of these exist now online where you're able to go ahead and find things.
You didn't have to go to a library and open up the fish scans?
No, I don't know what we have a library at my law firm and it's like stocked with books that, some people may still use, but mostly my generation's all online now. And it's nice to be able to still sit at home and research, which is kind of something I love to do. But it brings the point here of, being resources for people and being able to go back and look and to your point of like the hurricanes, I think Hurricane Sandy, I did find some case law for precedent there on certain ways that things are being handled. And so, these things we take for granted sometimes of maybe it's not happening in our neighborhood or maybe it didn't happen to me. They certainly end up being go-tos later on for trying to find an idea of how the case law is going to shake itself out and how, you know, clauses and leases are going to be interpreted. And that's kind of all my firm's been dealing with, is looking at people's contracts and trying to interpret what the law by the four corners of a document says, and does this lease hold water, or is there a little bit of room for you to get out depending on how you wrote that lease? And that's why it's really important to have counsel when you're negotiating leases, especially in commercial contracts, to make sure these unforeseen events, and we can all rest assured that every attorney going forward is going to write things into a lease to have these kind of protections. But until this point, we haven't seen the magnitude of the clauses that we need to cover these kind of unprecedented pandemics. Continuing on,
Sure.
On Form 5C, the additional comments section, is that where we make the case of why we need the funds? Or is there another area where you would put that?
I would put it in that area.
Okay.
Unless there's something additional that you want to put in there. I mean, that's a great, there's a lot of space there to put it in. So that's a great space to do it.
Good. Do you need to submit the tax returns for the application, or need to see if they wait and ask for them? And I know in the beginning you said it wasn't a requirement,
Yep.
but do you anticipate maybe they will ask based on the submission of what the document's saying?
Well, they're saying they're not, I mean, on the SBA call I was on 2 days ago, I think it was, they said that they were not going to require collateral or tax returns. So it sounds like they're not going to require them.
Okay, so
but
not,
they're
don't
asking,
send them.
yeah, but they're asking for that 4506T form, so they might just grab them themselves.
Okay.
So yeah.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Not at all, go.
Okay. Carla, would you think it's advisable given, so I'm always thinking within market context, right? I mean, if we see the market continue to erode, maybe it gets better. But when somebody's applying for a loan, would you advise them in kind of an uncertain environment like we're in to ask for a little bit more, like 10% more than they think they might need to kind of cushion them? Just kind of curious.
Yeah, so on the call that I was on, the amount they talked about and what they suggested is approximately 6 months of operating expenses. So it sounds like that maybe that's what you might get approved for based on what you submit. Mm-hmm. So if you apply for more, you may not get it.
Okay.
But there's the other program that you can apply for that we'll find out if you can, go with both. If you can, then that should cover the additional amount that you would need. And then there's always, the regular 7A SBA loan option also, if, these two don't fit into your basket, I guess.
We got time for about 1-2 questions. What do you got, James?
All right, so on the personal financial statement, do we put the stock value now or before the COVID crash?
Most likely they're going to be looking at what the stock value is today. And they're not really going to take too much on that because you can't really use stocks as collateral anyways because they fluctuate.
Fair point. On the personal financial statement, for the source of income, if somebody doesn't get a paycheck, as a business pays the personal expenses and they take a draw at times, what values would they put in for salary?
I would just put in an average amount that you're drawing.
Okay. And what is the net investment income?
Net investment income is most likely dividends that you get from investments. There might be a separate section for real estate income on that. I haven't really taken a really close look at the actual form, but
well, that's one of the follow-up questions. It says, is real estate income gross rents or net rents?
Yeah, so on the personal financial statement, which I assume they have not changed from the general form that they use, generally they're looking at net income.
Right. Awesome. And final question, because you've been so gracious, under the unpaid taxes, all IRS, New York State, income, county, school taxes, they're still due for 2020? Or are these taxes that you are behind on that were previously due?
So generally that is unpaid taxes that it says here, to be honest with you, it says describe in detail as to type, to whom payable, when due, amount, and to what property, if any, a tax lien attaches.
Okay.
So, and just say when it's due. I generally, when I submit these to the SBA, generally, I really only put like if there's any tax liens that they haven't paid.
Okay.
But you can do either or as long as you explain it.
Great. Well, you've been amazing. Thank you for being a resource to everybody who's going to end up watching this. I know my firm is super excited to have somebody with your knowledge explain this in detail. I thank you on behalf of all my friends and workers that I work alongside as industry partners with. How do people get a hold of you if they have follow-up questions?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So you can reach us directly at, if you're local, at 585-455-6846. Or you can go to our website, which is www.northstarbf.com, and that's B as in boy, F as in Frank, so northstarbf.com. And on that, you can submit a question or a request for a callback, and we can get right back to you.
And I'll drop that information in the comments as well.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the time, guys.
Do people across the state work with you, or is this isolated to just Rochester? Are you able to help out people in other areas? Because one of the things that our focus group focuses on now is representing the state in its entirety. So it would be helpful too if you could be a resource to people outside the Rochester area.
Yeah, so these loans are national loans, so they're applicable to the entire country. As far as the other products that we work with, the general SBA loans or working capital loans or real estate loans, our lenders are national. So the lenders that we partner with can offer financing in all 50 states, so we can do business all over the country.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yep. So thanks so much for inviting me on the call. I appreciate it. And,
we look forward to working with you.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
And this is just part one. Part two, we are going to hear more from Jeff Garcia. And Jamie, you want to give us just a 20-second preview of what we're going to go into on that call?
Sure. So Jeff and I, like Jeff had mentioned on part one of this podcast, Jeff and I began working together about a year ago. So my firm, again, because we do so much in the investor world and represent investors, we are always looking to partner with people who could help the investor structure their deals to be the most economic and tax incentive models. And one of those products is the 1031 DST exchange. And so my clients who are buying and selling properties, who are investors who do this often, and as part of their annual portfolio, they may buy 10 to 15 properties a year. They're benefited by the 1031. Jeff's product takes it a little bit further, especially in times after June of this past year with the new HSTPA, which is the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act. After June and with the looming potential for a good cause model where rents in New York State would be capped on how much you could increase your rent from year to year. And that cap would be somewhere around the 3% mark on proposals in New York State right now. That is proposed law, not passed law. Jeff's product would be able to give people an alternative who are not able to sustain their business models based on a 3% increase when most operating costs lie somewhere between 7 and 10%. And so we've introduced him to our group before these laws passed. We continue to push him as a resource because many of our clients are already exiting the market. And Jeff offers those people an opportunity to not lose the investment dollar amounts that they have already received and the equity out of those projects. And I'll let Jeff describe it in more detail because I'm not going to do a great job on that.
And we'll do that on the next podcast. Yeah.
Sounds great.
So all right. So we spent some time with you guys talking about how to stabilize and your tools and your resources to stabilize right now. The next part two of this series with the same guest speakers, we will talk about different vehicles to take advantage of right now. So, all right, very good. So please tune in to part two. And thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much, Carlo. We will talk to you on part two.
Sounds
awesome.
great.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.